silence in the air that night was deafening, a contrast so stark it bordered on physical pain. It was a silence of two careers, two lives, and one legendary, unspoken love story crashing into an impenetrable wall. The date was April 19th. The location, the chaotic, flashbulb-lit perimeter of the Shanghai Municipal Police Headquarters. When the news broke that Dylan Wang, the icon of youthful rebellion and effortless charm, had been taken into custody, the initial reaction was collective global disbelief. The charges, vague but deeply serious, hinting at corporate sabotage and the deliberate destruction of confidential digital assets, sounded like something ripped from a Hollywood script, not the reality of a global superstar. The entertainment world had seen scandals, but never one so bizarrely specific and seemingly motivated by cold calculation. But the true hidden story of April 19th doesn't begin with the squad cars or the arrest warrant. It begins 3 years earlier, in a quiet, rain-slicked city in Hunan, with two young actors forging an unbreakable, clandestine VOW. Tito understand the controversy, the pain, and the almost defiant loyalty Shen Yue displayed. You have to look beyond the dazzling lights of their success and back to the shadows of their shared beginnings. Specifically, you must look at what we in the industry refer to only as Project Nebula. Project Nebula was not a drama, a film, or an endorsement. It was a joint investment venture, a side project dreamed up by Dylan and Yue, designed to fund a non-profit arts collective for underprivileged students. It was an act of pure, shared idealism, meant to be their lasting, quiet legacy. They poured their savings, their time, and crucially, an immense amount of deeply sensitive, private information into the effort, swearing an oath of absolute secrecy. It was their secret, a sanctuary from the fame they navigated daily. The pain started when the project was corrupted, not by external forces, but by a close, trusted associate who exploited their good intentions and their naive belief in privacy. This associate began siphoning funds, manipulating the records, and, most damningly, started using the project's high-profile association with Dylan and Yue as leverage in unrelated, massive corporate dealings. When Dylan discovered the associate's betrayal, the threat was not just financial ruin or scandal. The associate possessed a complete mirror image of all Project Nebula's data. If released, the documents would not only expose the fraud, but, due to their intricate structure, would inevitably and unfairly implicate Shen Yue as the primary beneficiary of the illicit funds, a narrative that would destroy her career and reputation instantly. Dylan Wang's career was built on bravado and confidence, but behind the scenes, he is characterized by a fierce, almost dangerous protectiveness of those he loves. And he loved Shen Yue with a depth that transcended red carpets and fan theories. The night of April 19th was the deadline. The associate was preparing to leak the documents, shifting the blame entirely to Yue, who was unknowingly set to be the scapegoat. Dylan, operating on pure instinct in a timeline of mere hours, made a choice that was both catastrophic and profoundly romantic. He decided to become the villain. He didn't fight the accusation. He engineered it. The charge of deliberate digital sabotage stems from the fact that Dylan, in a final, frantic act, hacked into the associate's external server and systematically wiped the corrupted Project Nebula data, along with all the incriminating evidence of the associate's fraud. His goal was simple: destroy the only digital weapon that could harm you. He knew this action would trace back to him instantly. He knew the police would arrive. He knew the media would feast on his fall. But he also knew that the charges levied against him, however severe, were ultimately manageable for his team to navigate. The accusations that would have been leveled against Shen Yue were reputationally fatal. He chose the arrest, the controversy, and the personal pain over her destruction. He became the martyr of their shared love story. While the media painted Shen Yue as shocked, devastated, or worse, complicit, her true reaction was something far more primal, absolute, unmoving refusal. The image that will forever define this period of pain is not of Dylan being led away, but of Shen Yue hours later, standing alone outside the locked precinct doors. Her manager tried to pull her away. Her publicist begged her to consider the career damage of appearing linked to a high-profile case. "Go home, Yue. What will the public say?" Her manager pleaded, pulling at her arm. Yue's response, captured only by a security camera and later leaked to this outlet, was delivered with a cold, steady fire. "The public will say what they want. They have always done that. But if I leave, I prove him guilty. If I leave, I tell the world his suffering is a lie. He is inside because he is protecting something. And until I know what that is, I am not moving." She didn't leave. She stood there or sat on the cold concrete bench for a staggering 18 hours. She didn't grant interviews. She didn't issue statements of support. Her presence, solid, defiant, and physically refusing to detach herself from the epicenter of his pain, was her statement. It was a silent, controversial declaration of their depth of commitment that shocked every cynical observer. She was telling the world, through sheer visible loyalty, his pain is my pain, and if he falls, I will be the one holding him up. The 2-day media frenzy that followed was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Commentators called her naive, unprofessional, and possibly intoxicated by a love that blinded her to the legal and PR realities. But you saw something they didn't. She saw the self-sacrificial love in Dylan's eyes before the police took him, and she knew he had shouldered the entirety of a burden meant for two. The unraveling, a text in a timeline. The pain of the public scandal lasted weeks. But the truth, thankfully, has a way of resisting perpetual suppression. The first crack in the official narrative came not from expensive lawyers or elaborate defenses, but from a single, overlooked detail: the associate's burner phone. In his haste to frame you, the associate had sent one final, gloating text to a third party, mistakenly using the word protection instead of punishment when describing Dylan's pending arrest. The message, which surfaced during the chaotic discovery phase, read, "The idiot thinks he's by her freedom with his own arrest. What brilliant protection." This text was the key. It flipped the narrative instantly. Dylan's defense team, empowered by Yu's unwavering financial and personal support, quickly pieced together chronology. Dylan had acted not out of malice, but desperation. He was a man, driven by love, attempting to prevent the public execution of the woman he loved. The destruction of digital assets was revealed to be a defensive maneuver against a catastrophic leak. The charges were downgraded. The corporate sabotage claims evaporated, and the associate, facing overwhelming evidence of financial fraud and attempted character assassination, was quickly taken into custody instead. Dylan Wang's time in detention was mercifully brief, but the emotional cost, the public humiliation, and the sheer pain of that experience were profound. Yet, in the shared trauma of those weeks, their bond transcended the boundaries of a simple celebrity pairing. The permanent controversial union. Dylan Wang was fully exonerated 3 months later. The legal battle was won, the associate was prosecuted, and Project Nebula was salvaged and finally launched cleaner and more robust than before. But the controversy remains. Many still argue that Dylan's method, taking the law into his own hands, causing a massive public disruption, and allowing himself to be arrested, was reckless and irresponsible. It was, perhaps, the most controversial act of love in recent entertainment history. Yet, if you ask those closest to them, the arrest was not the end of a crisis, but the beginning of a truth. It was a moment their secret, deep commitment was forced into the light through the painful filter of an international scandal. Shen Yue's refusal to leave his side was not blind love. It was an act of profound, reciprocal recognition. She understood the sacrifice because she understood the depth of the love that motivated it. She refused to leave because, for the first time, she saw the full extent of the invisible shield he had been holding over her for years. Their story is no longer about fan service or dramas. It is a story cemented by courtroom concrete, legal pain, and public outcry. It is a story of two people who were willing to risk everything, their careers, their freedom, and their reputation, to protect the one thing they secretly valued above all else, each other. That is what really happened that night, and that is why, despite the initial pain and the continuing controversy, their union, forged in the heat of a legal crisis, is now truly unbreakable. The vows of the concrete floor. But for Dylan and Yu, the arrest was not the end of a crisis, but the beginning of a truth. It was a moment their secret, deep commitment was forced into the light. Their union, forged in the heat of a legal crisis and cemented by the cold concrete where Shen Yue waited, now operates on a truth deeper than any contract. While the world waited for a formal engagement announcement or a joint statement, sources close to the couple confirmed something far more clandestine and permanent took place. They didn't need a lavish ceremony. they had the police headquarters. Shortly after his exoneration, in a quiet, private ceremony that involved only their immediate families, Dylan and Yue exchanged their vows. There were no flashy rings, only two simple bands, symbolizing the promise they made, a love as enduring as the shield Dylan threw up for her that night. Their story is no longer about fan service or dramas. It is a story cemented by legal pain, public outcry, and a controversial sacrifice. It is a story of two people who risked everything to protect each other, a commitment sealed not in silken flowers, but in the harrowing reality of an arrest. That is what really happened that day, and that is why their union, officially uttered, is now truly under